Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem, amma ba'd. So today we're going to cover one of the major doubts that some people put forward, and there's not that much answers for. Um, in the upcoming sessions, I will be also addressing some other ones as well. But this was one of the main ones I just come across recently, and there's not much answered by the Islamic preachers or Islamic du'at, the people who give da'wah and stuff. So let's listen to the claim, and then I would inshallah respond to it with academic sources.
Time is gone. Chapter 24. You are the one who asked me.
If these are true,
my friend,
yes,
okay,
I
you will
denounce Islam.
All right, that's wonderful, guys. He said he promised.
So what this guy does is this princess, this person who's attacking Islam, is called Princess, the Christian princess, and what he does is he puts pressure upon this guy where he makes him makes him like puts pressure where he has to choose between X or Y. So it's either X, or if it's not X, then you have to do Y. And this scenario, the Muslim should have never got in the first place. He shouldn't agree that if you show me, then I'll do X. Like basically, I'll leave the religion. That's not how Islam works. You don't barter with your religion. It's not something that you would bet on or something like that. You don't play around with it. What you do is, if anyone brings you any claim about religion, because religion is something that's gonna determine your hereafter, your afterlife, and it's an eternal success or eternal damnation. So due to this reason, if it's gonna be, it's either gonna be eternal hell or eternal heaven. So why would you play around with it and say to the person that if you prove this, then I'll do that. So if you prove that it's not from God, then I'll do that. Because you should take that proof, you should evaluate it, you should check it, and you should go to scholars and read books on it. At least check it out. The thing is, this guy has never come across this particular doubt before, and his first point of action is to reject the religion, and that's not how it works. You're not supposed to be doing that at the first point of attack. So if someone attacks you, the first point you just reject it. Whether he's a real Muslim or not, that's another question that can be raised, because this person, this Christian guy, he actually has brought people up before who they were actually Christians, and you can find that from Farid video, and where Farid had a video where they actually talked about how there was a Christian who came on the show and stuff. Most likely he was a Christian. So whether he's a Muslim or not, that's another questionable thing, because he doesn't really show much emotion after he does leave Islam, because generally, if someone has a very big attachment to the religion, he will not he'll become emotional. I've seen this with some people on his stream, but in this particular case, he doesn't show no major emotion. And anyhow, let's proceed. Let's hear the claim, and then I'll debunk it.
Let's see what denounce Islam. The same chapter. You are the one who asked me to go to chapter of An-Nur before, chapter 24, verse number 43. You can read in Arabic, you can read in English, in any language you want. In English, they try to fabricate and to change the meaning. But
okay, so that's incorrect. We don't try to. In English, whenever you're going to translate, you're going to translate choosing certain words like from that translation, and there's a whole range of options to choose from, and sometimes it requires two words in that same sentence. But because if you put two words, it won't make sense within that sentence, and it will also make it longer. And due to that reason, the translators they choose a word. And so the main thing to remember is any translation is not regarded as a Quran, because it's regarded as a translation or interpretation of the Quran. And so that's very clear to begin with. Secondly, the things in the brackets that you can see, or if you see any footnotes in the Quran, that's there for you to understand, to try to understand what's being said. Because for the Quran, to understand the Quran, you need to know sabab al-nuzul, which is the context of revelation. There's many other factors that take into consideration. You have to take into consideration, for example, the Prophet's life and how he actually implemented the verse. So due to these factors, they will put this there. So a person can raise a question like, isn't the Quran clear? Like, isn't the Quran supposed to be clear? And why why do you need to go to external source to try to understand it, or why is there footnotes or brackets? Now the answer to that is because Allah has mentioned that the Quran itself is a test. The Quran, Allah tells us that in the Quran in chapter 2, He says that via the Quran, by the Quran, there will be people who will be led astray, and that's because of their approach. Like because they are transgressors, they approach the Quran, they'll be looking for something, and then they'll find it, and then that will lead them astray. Or if they have a disease in the heart, they'll be led astray. So the initial problem is with them, and then because of the initial problem, when they come to the scripture, and then they'll whatever the hearts desire, that's what will happen. Pretty much will happen. It's if they desire, sincere, if they have a sincere desire, and they're searching the truth, then they will be guided. So that's basically it. That's the reason why some of the, like Allah tells us in chapter 3 verse 7 that the Quran has ambiguous verses, mutashabihat, and then Allah tells us about those who have a disease in the heart. They try to search at interpretation for it, and the ambiguous verses are there for a purpose, as a test. What will the people do? And so that should be clear. Let's proceed.
I will show it to you in Arabic, and as long as you speak Arabic, me and you, we will get better understanding. It says here, وَيُنَزِّلُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مِنْ جِبَالٍ فِيهَا مِنْ بَرَدٍ فَيُصِيبُ بِهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Does it say that, or I'm lying?
Yes, very clear.
All right. You promised you will denounce Islam. Hail is coming from mountains in heaven. I mean, even cartoon, they don't do that. And look here in the first translation. I want you to confirm this with me.
I believe somebody mixed these things into Quran when they written.
My friend, there's nothing called
book.
Mixed. Either this
is from God.
Either this is this is not a book of God. And look what here. As long as you speak Arabic, why the Muslims they lie and they say like mountains? Does it say like mountains in the Arabic?
No, anything between these two brackets don't.
So they are trying to cover up. So look, they send down from the sky from mountains, which is in heaven, hail.
No, it doesn't make sense.
So they fabricate the translation in order to cover the stupidity. Whoever wrote this book is foolish. This is maybe work for people who
whoever this part here, whoever written didn't have a clue about anything in the sky, but what's going on in the sky.
Assuming that the one who did this is Allah have no clue. What about this?
I don't believe this is from a God.
Look at this. Allah, He created it.
All right, so let's address the initial point I made. Okay, so let's go through some of the sources. Just give me a second. It's on my WhatsApp. I put it on the WhatsApp notes area. Alrighty. Okay, so first, so if you understood his claim was that in the Quran, let me show you the verse. So in the Quran, it says, do you not see that Allah drives the clouds? Then He brings them together, then He makes them into a mass, and you see the rain emerge from within it. And He sends down from the sky mountains. Let's ignore the brackets because that's the context. So mountains, within which is hail, and He strikes with it whom He wills and averts from whom He wills. The flash of lightning almost takes away the eyesight. So the point they're trying to make is that apparently in the sky there's a mountain, which from it there's a hail. The hails come from, and it strikes people. Now, how do we understand this? There are approximately two explanations that's been given which can reconcile it. So one thing you should remember is anything that has a reconciliation factor, then you can't say that's an error. So let's say within the verse there's way to reconcile this with modern science, and the modern discovery of science and whatnot, then you can't call that an error. If there's ways to reconcile it, then you can't call that an error, because then it's very possible that it can be one of them possibilities, and it's just that people haven't understood it. Yeah, so that's all it is. And secondly, this discovery about how the the rain and the hail and everything like that comes down. This is actually discovered around about. It was officially kind of detailed around about 1800s, which I will show you after. So it's a modern phenomena. That's number one. Number two, also to keep in mind is actually it slipped my mind. Okay, yeah. So let's just go to the explanation. Oh yeah. So one thing to remember is that philosophy of science, based on philosophy of science, can change, and even scientific facts can change. So if you look at paradigm shifts, that's the whole system of paradigm, like the system that science works upon. It changes. So you can search that up in your own time. So based on that, we don't interpret the Quran based upon the current science of the day. And but you can like I'll show you how this is compatible with the current science. But even though we wouldn't interpret it as a definite fact, because there's multiple explanations that can be given. Okay, so let's go to the explanation. So one of the meanings of jibal. So I went to Lane's lexicon, as you can see on the top here. So I went to Lane's lexicon, and they had multiple meanings. And one of the meanings is a majazi meaning, which is a metaphorical meaning. And there jibalun can mean at the body with or without the members, the jasadun. So it's a synonymous to jasadun and badanun, and is being likened to a mountain in bigness. So that can also be the case here, where when it says that there's a mountain in the that Allah sends. Let me go back to the verse when it says, and He sends down from the sky mountains, from the sky, and He sends down from the sky mountains within which is hail. Now, this mountain can refer to a size instead of an actual mountain, like that's so that's on Earth. So it doesn't have to be literal. So that's one point that I should keep in mind. Secondly, there's two ways of reconciling it. So this is within the grammar, right? We can clearly see, and they give an example here as well where this is used. And yeah, so that should be clear. So grammatically, it's completely logical for it to be metaphorical and non-literal. So that's possible. It's a possible interpretation. Now, when we go to the explanations, there's two explanations that it can be two logical explanations that I've come across. One is that this may mean frozen clouds which have been called mountains in the heavens metaphorically. And I'll show you like academic papers that actually refer to them as mountains. So even academic papers refer to them as mountains. Forget a book that came prior, or like something that's not in a scientific book, right? But something that came after is also like the scientific community have also referred it as mountains, like mountains in the heavens metaphorically. It may also mean the mountains of the earth which stand high in the heavens and whose snow-capped peaks cause condensation in the clouds which results in hailstorms. So these are two explanations that reconcile it very easily. I've also come across a third one which we'll come to soon. But these are the two explanations that would reconcile it, and that should actually stop a Muslim from leaving his faith. And the reason is, anything has a reconciliation factor, then it's very possible it can be that explanation can be that. So why would you conclude and say it's X? It refers to a literal mountain over another one. So that should be clear. That's how you would reconcile it. Now, let's go through some of the verses and some explanations about it. So there's different types of clouds, right? There's one type of cloud is called cumulus clouds. Is that it extends vertically to a height of 15 kilometers or more, and thus they appear to those who look at them from a distance as if they are huge mountains. The ability to grow vertically provides the possibility of the formation of cumulus clouds across the layers of the atmosphere whose temperature vary greatly, and as a result vertical swirls are formed and hailstones are formed as well. So the cumulus clouds are the only ones that produce hailstones, and this fact itself explains the verse in which Allah says, and He sends down from the sky mountains of clouds in brackets within which is hail. When the scientists use radar, so here what they say in the next part here, right? They essentially said that this thing is actually scientifically mentioned within the Quran, which is actually in accordance to science. And they discuss how the clouds formation has been mentioned in the Quran. Like for example, Allah mentions, do you not see that Allah drives the clouds? Then He brings them together. Then He makes them into a mass. And this formation is a recent study. The first part of the verse tells of the stages of the formation of the cumulus clouds, and then specifies that they grow vertically until they become like mountains. At this point, they produce hail, unlike other kind of clouds. So, and then it talks about how as if the cloud bursts, and then it says Allah says, and He strikes them with whom He wills, and averts it from whom He wills. Okay, so let's see. So here they're just going to talk about other developments within that same field where it's actually scientifically accurate and on point in other areas too. And some have actually referred to them as scientific miracles because of the fact that it's aligning with science. But okay, so here you can see that perhaps the first book which documented the fact that the rainy clouds are driven by the wind is this Quran. So the rainy clouds getting driven by the wind is in the Quran. That's perhaps the first book. This is according to an expert, and I'll show you also where this is the case. The perception among some ancient civilizations is that rain comes from water stored in the sky when God opens the doors and windows. But however, Allah doesn't say this. Allah says it's Allah who sends the winds, and they stir the clouds and spread them in the sky. And then Allah said, and it is He who sends the winds as good tidings before His mercy. And until when they have carried heavy rain clouds, we drive them to a dead land, and we send down rain therein, and bring forth thereby of all the fruits. Thus we will bring forth the dead. Perhaps you may be reminded. So Allah actually refers to this as heavy clouds, heavy rain clouds, and this is actually a recent discovery again. So how did a man in 1400 years ago know this? Especially when the science at that time was completely different. And I think they mention it here somewhere where the science was different. So it says here it should be noted that at the time when the Quran was revealed, no one knew that air carries great amounts of water in the form of water vapor, and that is this water vapor which forms clouds and gives rain when air currents go up and become cold under the influence of proliferation and the reduction of the air pressure because of higher altitude. So the water is the basis for the formation of the clouds due to the existence of many factors that meet and interact together, forming the clouds. Let's see. Okay, I think we covered pretty much the explanation of it. I'm just seeing if they mention something else. Okay, yeah, that's clear. So I'll close this tab down. So this is the next verse. So these are the verses, the reference to the verses. And I'll close one of them down each. Okay, this is Tafsir ibn Kathir, this commentary of the Quran, which actually talks about it. And it talks about how the grammarians have discussed like the min, and it talks about how they explain it. And essentially, some of them actually took a literal position, but some of them actually took a metaphorical position, and he talks about that here. He talks about it here. He says that as for those who said that mountains here is used as a metaphor for clouds, they think that the second min in the grammar, it's also used to describe the place from which the ice is coming, and is thus interchangeable with the first, and Allah knows best. So I've attached all of this to the description box. You can find it there once I'm done. And so this is Tafsir Ibn Kathir actually mentions this as well. So let's close this one. Also, to keep in mind, like, there's even in our English language, we have the phraseology of mountain of gold, and we use these kind of phraseologies, but what we actually mean is a non-literal case. So it's not something impossible, and within the language it's possible. So just keep that in mind. Secondly, like, this formation and behavior clouds, etc., was actually first truly scientific studies were undertaken by Luke Howard in 1772 till 1864 in England. So that's the case, and you can also find it here. I've also you can find it here. This was the first attempt that was done, and before that they didn't know the formation properly. It was just based on conjecture. So yeah, all this proves basically this is a new thing which the Quran has actually outlined very early on. Allah has outlined like how the clouds are heavy, for example, which wasn't known before, and how the winds, like push the clouds and whatnot. Alrighty. So the next thing we should talk about is the meteorologists have found that these clouds, right, they shower hail and reach a height of 25,000 to 30,000 feet, like mountains, as the Quran says. So, and also, this is a key part. This is the next part I wanted to mention, was about lightning, because the verse actually mentions lightning. This verse may raise a question: why does the verse says it's lightning in a reference to the hail? Does this mean that the hail is a major factor in producing lightning? So if you go to the meteorology today, and it says there that basically the cloud becomes electrified as hail falls through a region in the cloud of supercooled droplets and ice crystals. As liquid droplets collide with a hailstone, they freeze on contact and releases latent heat. This keeps the surface of the hailstone warmer than that of a surrounding ice crystal. When the hailstone comes in contact with an ice crystal, an important phenomenon occurs. Electrons flow from the colder object toward the warmer object. Hence, the hailstone becomes negatively charged. The same effect occurs. So here they just talk about how that works, and then it says, we conclude from this that the hail is a major factor in producing lightning. This information on lightning was discovered recently. Until 1600 AD, Aristotle's idea on meteorology were dominant. For example, he said that the atmosphere contains two kinds of exhalation, moist and dry. He also said that the thunder is the sound of the collision of the dry exhalation with the neighboring clouds, and lightning is the inflaming and burning of the dry. So this was even this concept of lightning due to the hailstones. This was unknown, and this is even a recent discovery. So what we find is what we can conclude is that the scientific community, they have models or theories that they're going to keep changing, and we don't change our scripture based upon that. We don't conclude based on that, because based on philosophy of science, it keeps changing, which is completely fine. They can do that, but we don't change something that's factual, something that we have a foundation in. We don't change that, which is Islam is the truth. So here, what I wanted to show you was, I think it was let me just see which part it was exactly. Alright, so I think it was this part that I wanted to show you. I think this pretty much says the same thing here, so we'll just skip that. And yeah, I think we'll skip that because I pretty much summarized all that already. So you know the initial explanation that was given here, which was that sometimes it can also refer to mountains which are on Earth, but they reach a high level of the canopy. So it reaches a high level of canopy, which stand high in the heavens, in the sky, and whose snow-capped peaks cause condensation in the clouds, which results in hailstorm. So mountains actually have a massive contribution to hailstones, and I'll demonstrate that here. So here he talks about why do clouds often form above mountain peaks. A cloud is a mass of water drops or ice crystals suspended or floating in the atmosphere as we see them in the sky. Most of the time look fluffy and white. Let's skip this part. So here they discuss like how it causes condensation and whatnot. So it does actually explains it and whatnot. It cools and condenses until it forms snow or rain, which eventually will fall on the windward side of the mountain. And I think I've got some more sources on that as well. So here, this is the mountain cloud kind of size, but you can see the size of it. That was the purpose of this article. Okay, let's close that one down. Let's go to the next one. So this word right here, precipitation, is any liquid or frozen water that forms in the atmosphere and falls to the earth. Is one of the three main steps of the global water cycle. And let's go. So in conclusion, right, this is an article which is give me a second, I'll show you who's I believed. Let me show you the person who's authored it. So this is by Robert A. Jose Jr. and this is this guy. He's a professor and whatnot, so he's a reliable individual. And so let's see what he concludes based on his research. He concludes mountains and hills have both direct and indirect effects on the formation of precipitation within clouds. So we talked about what precipitation is, which is hailstones and whatnot, and water drops within clouds. By far, the bulk of orographically affected precipitation comes from cloud systems that owe their existence to fundamental instabilities of the atmosphere. So yeah, he's basically discussed that's his conclusion, that the mountains do have a direct and indirect formation of the precipitation within the clouds. So yeah, so based on that one explanation, we can see how it's scientifically accurate. That one explanation, which we can easily reconcile it. Now the other one, which is like the clouds itself has a massive mass and it's really massive like a mountain. We'll come to that next. Okay. Let me see which part is important here. So here they just talk about the size, how it forms, and oh yeah, here is mentioned actually. Its lower portion exhibits the form of a mountain of bulbous towers. So it's like they even describe it as a mountain. So the Quran has mentioned this 1400 years ago, right? Mountain, and these guys are already like this is a modern thing, and these guys are describing it too. So let's go to the next thing. So it will look. This is on top of the clouds. You'll find that the actual clouds will look. Let me show you how it look. It will look something like this. Okay, so here you can see how, like, if we go with the explanation that the mountains with the second explanation, you can see how the mountains cause condensation. You can see, I'll click for condensing the water vapor, precipitation, moist rising air, and whatnot. So yeah, it's completely scientifically accurate. This is Britannica, so you can find the references. You should easily find them because I'm gonna link them in the description. Alright, so this is a book that I went to. and it's the same author that I've said before. And let's see what he says. He says the cumulonimbus is a heavy and dense cloud with a considerable vertical extent in the form of a mountain. Do you guys see that? In form of a mountain. Now, what does the Quran say? Remember what we said before? The Quran said it was like the Quran said the mountain, and this is completely in line. And the question is, what made this author do this? Like, why did he write form of a mountain? Because it's completely in line with with the Quranic explanation that's been given, and it actually and then discuss how it's like a mountain. They talk about how the shape is and whatnot, and how the bottom bit is down and whatnot. So they discuss all that here. So this will be linked as well. So here you can see an example. So this is one of the discoveries that's been made. The weights of the clouds are reached quite astonishingly proportions. For example, the cloud commonly known as thundercloud can contain up to 300,000 tons of water. And the Quran, what does the Quran say? It says, "It is He who sends the winds, bringing advance news of His mercy, so that when they have lifted up the heavy clouds," and in another verse, heavy clouds. So it's completely scientifically accurate, and it's actually predates like this discovery is is profound, where even scientific community didn't know this with factual information. So here, this is another scientific article where it talks about how heavy is the actual cloud. So yeah, let's skip this part. Okay, this is one extra explanation that's been given, which I don't think is very accurate, but is one explanation, which is that the hail is the frozen rain or stones of frozen water, and it can be described as mountains. So what they're saying is that there's comets of ice that actually come out of the world, and these actually have a impact on our water system. So it says several scientists have researched the hypothesis that the source of all the oceans is storms of icy comets that enter the Earth's atmosphere at a rate of 20 per minute. These comets, which are believed to contain about 100 tons of water each, vaporize on impact with the atmosphere and fall as rain or snow. And it discusses more about this. So, like, basically, they're saying that there's ice coming from out of the world, essentially, and it would be in line with the Quran where it says it comes from heaven, and it's like it describes it as a mountain. So, and I've actually checked this, and it's actually true. It seems to be the case. It says it covers 3/4 of the surface of the Earth. Let's see. So out of this world, Earth's water comes from icy comets and grains of space dust. So this is an article, news article, and it quotes the NASA here image of the storm. So anyway, it says it covers 3/4 of the surface of the Earth and gives our planet its distinctive blue complexion when viewed from outer space. But the source of the liquid water that sustains our seas and which has nourished life on our world for eons is a subject of major scientific debate. So it's still a debate, and but it's it's still up for debate, but it's still they're still basically researching it. That's the point here. All right, I think that should have covered everything. So what I'll do is I'll just show you my server. If you guys want to join, whoever's on Discord, let me know. I'll send you the link. And other than that, I think I've clarified everything. So there's two explanations, and it's these two here. Now let me see if there's anything else to mention. No, I think that's it. So let's end this stream, and we'll come next time, inshallah, and mention something next time.